Okay, hi, let's look at working with strings. Okay, so a string is a variable length of alphanumeric characters. So it can contain numbers and characters, but the numbers that they're contained are seen as a string, not actually as an integer or a real number. And it's variable length, it's not a fixed length. So you can see here I've declared a variable called s and I've assigned it this string, which I've used double quotes around it. So all the characters in here are part of that string value that's been assigned to s. In this example here, I've declared a variable s1 and I've assigned it the value 4, but 4 is in quotes, so it's seen as a string. So strings can be worked on, they can be tested for equivalence, etc., etc. They can also be concatenated. So if I do print, and I'm printing a string hello, and I'm adding to that another string world, that's going to print out hello world. So notice plus here works as a concatenation as opposed to addition. So let's just try some of those. Okay, and this is my idle environment. Here we go. So I have here this basic sort of program, and I'm going to run that. Oops, daisy. Sorry. Run. Okay, so let's just see what's happened. Okay, so my first line, print hello world. I've got hello world in double quotes. It's printed it. Everything's fine. I printed it again, and it prints again. Hello again. Now notice here that I didn't need to have a /n for a new line or an end L, as some programming languages do. Just whenever it hits the next print function, it knows it's on the next line. Okay, so that's a little bit easier than other languages. Here I'm just testing if it will work with a single quote, and you see it does. So does it work with a single quote? And it's absolutely fine. Okay, so and then how do I use apostrophes? We have names such as O'Carroll and O'Burke or so on, or even this, I've got I'd and don't and won't. How do I cope with those? So you can see here, in this one I want to use apostrophes. So because I want to have an apostrophe in the center of the text, I start and end my string with doubles. Okay, like this. If I want to have double quotes in the center of my text, I start and end my string with a single quote, like that. And that's what I had there for. Let's say, for example, if I didn't do that, let's say I start my string with a single quote, and then I put an apostrophe, as in don't here. The program thinks this quote here is the end for this one. So it doesn't see this as being part of the string and will give me an error. So if I try and run that, I'm getting an error to say is it invalid. So this is invalid, it doesn't know what it is. So if I want to use a single quote or an apostrophe in the middle, I must front and end my string with double quotes. And you can see here it's all in green, it's seen as a string. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is this. It's taking strings and splitting them. So we'll just talk about that first, and then I'll come back to that. So a string can be indexed. So that means that we can work or play over the length of a string, picking off each character one at a time. So the first position or first index or element of the string has a position 0. So that's 0. 1 is the space. So spaces are still it's a valid string character is the space. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and so on. Okay. So a string has can be indexed. So if I do, for example, print 0, so that's print for me the character at the 0 element of the string. That should print A for me. Print the character at the third index, which is actually the 4th element of the string. And this is splicing. So this is taking character that starts at element position 9 and ends at element position 14. So it should give you the 10th and 15th characters. And I can also test strings for equivalence. So here you can see I'm printing is S2 equivalent to S3. And that will give me a true or a false value. So let's go back to where we were with that string. Sorry, and I'm going to just run that program. And we'll see that work there. Okay. Excuse me. So I have taken a value, assigned a name, John, as a string into a variable called first. I've assigned another value, Susan, into a variable called second. And here I've assigned another variable, declared another variable called initials. Now initials takes the value of, it's the character at the 0 index of first, which is J, plus, which if you remember in strings is concatenation. So it concatenates this string, which is an ampersand character, plus concatenate to that the character at 0 position of second. Now second holds Susan, and the capital S is at the 0 position of second. And then I want to print out initials, which is this variable here, and it prints off J and S. Okay, in this slightly more advanced version, here I'm taking in values. So here, rather than hard code in John and Susan, I want to take a value at runtime. So, the game then becomes more usable for any different player. So what happens here is, let's just run it and we'll see it. So I'm going to run that. So So I get this message, enter your first name, when I run it. So what happened is that this string has been displayed on the console and it waits for my input. Now whatever is input is put into the variable first. So I'm over here and I'm going to type in, my name is Jacqueline, and I hit return. And then I get the next message, enter your significant other's first name. And you can see there it's flashing, it's sitting and waiting for my input. So I'm going to input now. And the input is going to go into the variable called second. So input David, return. And it printed J and D. Okay. So what it did, it took the character at 0 position of first, which is the J, concatenated that with the ampersand, which is here, and then took the character at the 0 position of second, which was the D for David, and printed off J and D. Now this also works with numbers, which is why I've got this down here. So I've declared a variable called num1, input, enter your first number. So it sits and waits, and I'm going to enter in a 4. So I enter it, and then I get enter in your second number. Sorry, I made a mistake there. And I can type in a whatever, 4. Sorry, I'm going to run that again. So enter in 5 and 6. Okay, so it's taken new numbers into 5, it's taken into num1, it's taken 6 into num2. Now it's actually read them in as strings, which do something slightly different with them to convert it into an integer if you want to do maths in them. But if you're programming games such as guess the number type games, this is the type of thing that you will do. Okay, so one more thing looking at strings. Okay, so this is slightly more advanced, a lot of code in here, but let's just go through it. Okay, so I've declared a variable called S, and I've assigned it this string length. I've declared a variable called S1, and I've put in a string, which happens to hold the numeral 4, but it's seen as a string. And I've declared these other variables, S2, S3, S3, and I've put the word coding into each of those. So print hello world. Okay, so I'll just run that module so we can see the results of that. Okay, so print hello world here, prints hello world as a concatenated string. we can repeat strings. As you can see here, I've got print, and in my double quotes, I've got star, star, dash. And I multiply that by 4 times. So that's going to print that out 4 times. So star, star, dash, star, star, dash, star, star, dash, star, star, dash. So nice underscores, stars around your words, that sort of thing. That's how you would do that there. Okay, indexing. If you remember, S holds this string length here. So print S prints the whole string for me, which is a string is a variable length of alphanumeric characters. Print the character at element position 0, which is a capital A. That's what I've got here. Print the character at element position 3, which is a T. 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I don't have to have the value or the string held in a variable. Here I'm giving it a string at runtime. So I'll say print. I'm giving it the word Python. And then I'm using inside my square brackets, I'm telling it the element number I want or the index number I want. So those two terms are sort of interchangeable, the element or the index. So I'm looking for the first character, the character at position 0, which is the capital P, and that's what's printed there. This is my slicing, which is giving me the is-a. Okay, so this is something I haven't shown you on the slide. What I'm doing here is I'm taking S. If you remember, sort of S is that string here. I'm taking S and I'm splitting it on white space. So wherever it comes across a space, I'm going to split it. And I'm going to put the results into a list called, and the variable is called words. So my variable is words, and words is of the list data type. Now it knows itself it's a list because I'm sending it in a list of values. So when I print words, look what comes out. It's put in square brackets around my list, and each of those words in my original string is now a sort of substring with a comma separating them. So I've got a, next word is string, so it's in here as a string type itself. The next word is, and that's the next element in my list, and it's as a string, but I've got my little quotes around it, and is, a, and so on. So it's split my string into a list of words. Okay. When I do length of words, so L-E-N, and then in brackets words, and here I happen to be printing it, so print length of words gives me 9. So it's telling me that there's 9 words in my string, in my list rather. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 words in my list. The variable is called words. I can use length, len, and then round brackets S. Now S, don't forget, is a string here. S is the string. So what's the length of the string? The length of the string is 58. So there's 58 characters in the string. So there's 58 characters in this, okay, whereas there's 59 elements in the list. Sorry, pardon me, so there's 9 elements in the list, but 58 characters in the string. If I want to print off the last character, so here I'm printing S, I want to print S, but rather than doing print, S and then in square brackets 0, or print S square brackets 3, here I'm sending in the length function. So it's the length minus 1. So the length of S was 58. I have to use minus 1 because don't forget the first element is 0. So this is the 57th. So 58th character happens to be at the 57th element. It's just a little bit awkward, but once you get your head around it, it's fine. So it's like reading, it's like I've said, print S 57. So effectively that is doing the same thing. But that's really handy if I don't know what the length of the string is. Okay. And that gives me the S there, which is the final character in that string. Okay, here looking at equivalence. So I've got is S2 equivalent to S3? And the result is true. So S2 is equivalent to S3. So S2 held the word coding. S3 held the word coding, and they're exactly equivalent, so I've got a true. Notice here though, when I do print S4 equivalent to S3,